Hey there, welcome to the DFS Build NBA Edition. I'm Kevin Roberts. Getting ready to go over the DraftKings main slate for Saturday. Goal here is to help you win. Obviously, that was the goal yesterday too, but my goodness, you needed a truly perfect lineup to do anything last night. I had Jokic, he had 100 fantasy points. I had our core play, which was phenomenal. Our core play was a smash. We talked about Emmanuel Quickly and Scotty Barnes before that even too. So like even the guys outside of our core plays were just crushing. And I had a lot of that 368 fantasy points, and it did not cash. So you really needed a dream spot. We did have a couple people hit in our Discord, which is free, by the way. So you can hit the link at the bottom of this video and come join the conversation. If you want to check out our core plays, you can hit up our Patreon as well. But let's get into it here. I'm going to go team by team, starting with the New Orleans Pelicans. This game with the Rockets here has a 229 total, so pretty good spot for DFS purposes. But it's still on the road in Houston, and the Rockets are a pretty good defensive team, so I'm not super excited to get to New Orleans. I will say Jose Alvarado is questionable. I think at 4.8K, he's like an okay value if he's in, but if he's out, we could look at Jordan Hawkins at 4.4K with a little bit more excitability. Zion's always going to be, viable as a tourney play. So 43-point fantasy projection at no ownership. I don't mind him, but right now I'm not really getting to anybody else. From the New Orleans side, I think Zion's fine as a tourney play. Just don't think he's a super big priority for me on this slate. All right, over to the Houston side. Fred VanVleet remains out, so obviously that's going to provide a boost to Jalen Green and Amen Thompson. They look really, really good here against the Pels. The Pels are a dream spot. Really terrible defensive team, and the pace should be pretty good here. Şengün should feast against the Pels. I think he actually did last time too. Let me just check the numbers. Yeah, 43 fantasy points against them per game across 3 meetings. They just played them the other day, and he had 47.5 fantasy points in 36 minutes. So, and Zion too, I'm pretty sure I was right about it. He did not do that well in this matchup because it's not a good matchup for anybody really. Houston is a good defensive team. Last time 42, so he was fine. Like, again, he has a massive ceiling. If we take a look at Zion's games real quick, actually, just to kind of double down on the whole GPP thing, like he does have upside and he has monster usage, so I don't mind him. But everybody for Houston looks good here. Tari Eason at 5.6 looks like a really good value. Dylan Brooks at 4.6 is a totally viable value. Jabari Smith even is okay at 5.7 just because he usually gets good minutes. If like he or Tari were to sit, I think Cam Whitmore would open up as a good value at 4.1 as well. But for the most part, we're looking at Tari and we're looking at the 3 studs for Houston. All those guys are super in play. And Amen right now, because he's also eligible at small forward, is going to carry a little bit more ownership than the other guys. But I think my favorite one after Tari is going to be Jalen Green, just because he's only 7.3K and it's a really good spot. And he's cheaper and less owned than Amen right now. Indiana at the Hawks, we have a 245 total. So this looks like the best game environment of the entire slate. And it certainly was pretty good the other day. They had a shootout and all those guys hit. Tyrese Haliburton did not play in that game, and he is questionable again. If Haliburton is in, he looks like a good play, a good spend up at 8.8K, has a nice projection, not super owned yet. And like I said, one of the best DFS environments of the slate, if not the best. So you can play Hallie if he's in. If not, we can definitely look at TJ McConnell again. He had 27 fantasy points off the bench for the Pacers last time out. Andrew Nembhard continues to play big minutes at 5.4K. He's a good lower tier value anyways. He's probably going to get 35 minutes. He's going to shoot for 30-35 fantasy points. And against the Hawks, it could be even better. And with Hallie possibly out, he could just be an awesome play at 5.4. Aaron Nesmith is in play at 5K. Just not super excited about him because he is very scoring dependent and just can be a pretty thin play in general. But he's been pretty good. Like, there's nothing wrong with him. Good minutes. And the matchup is as good as it gets. So if Hallie's out, Nesmith does look a little bit better at 5. The other big one to watch is Benedict Mathurin, 4.9K. He's been missing some time. Questionable for this one. I'd be a little bit hesitant to play him. But at 4.9K, it's like the risk is kind of baked into his salary. He'd probably get 20, 25 minutes. And the matchup is awesome, so he could totally go off. I hope he's just out. And then we can look at Nesmith and Nembhard, with confidence. And then if Hallie's out, we should be getting to a lot of Nembhard and TJ McConnell specifically. Siakam went off in this matchup the other day. That's not updated here. Let me tell you what he did. I think it was like 49 fantasy points or something like that against the Hawks. Well, in 2 meetings, he's averaging 46 fantasy points per game against them. And last time out, 2 days ago, he had 50 fantasy points, 35 real points. So there's nothing about this matchup that looks bad for Siakam. If Hallie is in at 7.9, I think Siakam's fine. If Helly is out, Siakam is borderline core play. Miles Turner is in play at 6.5K. He did not really thrive in this matchup last time out, but he certainly can crush, and that is a pretty cheap price tag if Helly is out. I think he's okay if Helly is in too. On the other side, Trae Young had 51 fantasy points against the Pacers just the other day, so he obviously has no problem benefiting from this matchup, as you would expect. Trae, for once in his life, did not burn me. He was good last time out in 2 meetings against the Pacers. He's now averaging 60 fantasy points per game, so obviously, he has a massive ceiling. He's not very owned. His projection looks good. The only problem with Trae at all right now is the price. 9.8K feels a little bit steep for Trae, but we know he can get there with his threes and dimes, so I do like him as a tourney play right now. Dyson Daniels, forever a solid play, especially with this matchup. Daniels is just really pretty darn consistent. Lately, he's dropped down just a little bit here, but this green range is what we've come to expect from him, and this is a really nice spot, so I don't mind him at 6.9. Just a really good price for a rock solid play if you get there. Not really a priority for me just because he doesn't have a really, really good ceiling, but a really solid play. Onyeka Okongwu, I liked him a lot the last time out. He had 44 fantasy points against Indy. Indy's very bad inside, so Onyeka has a clear path to a lot of easy buckets. He shoots 80% of his shots inside, so he just looks like a smash play here once again. He's been very good. He's been, good to great. So, still a little bit too cheap for who he can be in the matchup. I like him a lot at 6.6. Not a core play probably, but he's pretty close. Karis LeVert is questionable. If he's in at 5.5, he's a solid value. If he's out, we can look at Reza Shea at 4.5. You can still look at Reza Shea anyways at 4.5, but if LeVert is out, I feel a lot better about him. And Niang at 4.2 is a decent value. He popped off in this game the other day. That's not updated. Let's see where he is just to give you an idea of what we can expect. At 4.3, he had 37 fantasy points, 24 real points. It is a good matchup, obviously, so I don't mind it. Feels a little bit chasey, especially if LeVert is in. But I think he's totally fine if you're looking for value. Next game has a 224.5 total. It looks pretty darn good. Wizards and Raptors. Neither of these teams have much to play for, so you do always have to consider who's tanking, who's really trying to win, what are they going to do with the rotations. You never really know. But starting on the Washington side, we have Jordan Poole here, questionable. He's been missing some time lately. So if he remains out, I love the Wizard side of this. Bub Carrington at 5.6K. He's been very good lately. 39 fantasy points against the Jazz in his last game. And once again, he has a really nice matchup here. He did not have success against the Raptors the first time he faced them, but he's playing pretty big minutes now. So I don't really worry. I'm not too concerned about that. He's been consistent too. 27 plus fantasy points in each of his last 4 games. So he looks good. Keyshawn George at 5.3. Bilal Coulibaly at 6.K. I would rank them in that order in terms of my interest. It would be Carrington, Keyshawn George, and then Bilal. That's if Poole is out. If Poole is in, Poole would be a priority at 7.2K, and I'd feel a little less excited about these other guys. I don't really like the minutes projections with Poole in. Carrington down to 23, Keyshawn down to 30. Not really going to mess with the graybeards like Chris Middleton. The only other guy here excuse me, the only other guy here would be Sarr at 5.4. He smashed with 39 fantasy points against the Jazz. If Rashawn Holmes is out, then there's nothing preventing Sarr from crushing once again against the Jazz. We saw Walker Kessler get 25 rebounds in this matchup. And assuming Toronto is still without, most of their guys here, and it looks like that is possible, Sarr could go absolutely nuclear here. So Wizards look really, really good. Just got to keep an eye on the stats of Poole and Rashawn Holmes. On the other side, the Raptors, Scotty Barnes was phenomenal. Emmanuel Quickley was phenomenal. Right now, as all we know is Quickley is out due to rest. RJ Barrett rested yesterday and should be back. And unknown what's going to happen with Scotty. Assuming we can trust that Scotty will not be rested or limited whatsoever, 7.7 is way too cheap for yet another amazing matchup. Nice 41-point fantasy projection. Feels a little bit light, to be honest. Like he should be one of the best projecting players of the slate, and especially if you look at point per dollar value here, he just looks amazing. He's going to be chalky. So will RJ Barrett. Don't really care. As long as we are just willing to risk the fact that these guys kind of, 2 games ago, they got benched in the fourth quarter of a close game. So that, scared off some people yesterday for sure. I'm just going to play them. It's too good of a spot. I'm just going to play them. And if it happens again, then we can start learning that it's something we really have to worry about. Don't worry about Quickly. He's not going to be playing. Jakob Poeltl, I think, is questionable. So if Poeltl's back, he's still been kind of limited lately. He's a very good per minute guy. He can crush in limited minutes. He's only been playing about 22 to 26 minutes lately, and he's had 34 and 39 fantasy points in his last 2 games. So especially against the Wizards, who give up a lot of production to big men, Pirtle is still in play at 5.6, but I just don't think he's a priority due to the limits there. Grady Dick is questionable at 4.2K. If he's in and starts, I don't mind him. I think he's good value. A little bit more interesting if he's out, because then we can look again at like guys like AJ Wilson and Shead or Jamal Shead at 3.5K. So especially also because Jacoby Walter is out. He exited yesterday's game with an injury. So Raptors are even more thin than we originally thought, and they're without Agbaji, Mogbo. Brandon Ingram still hasn't made his debut. Like, they are very shorthanded, so we can definitely look to some Toronto punts. I think I would start with Shead and AJ Lawson, though, if I'm going to do that. All right, Bulls in Miami. Bit of an ugly game in theory, just because it's on the road against the Heat, and the Bulls remain banged up, but it still does have like a 226.5 total, so I don't think it's that bad. I think we can certainly still play it, especially since we know the Bulls play fast and don't defend at all. I will tell you that the Bulls are still extremely shorthanded here. Vooch is doubtful. Kobe White is now on the injury report. He is probable, but just monitor that because we know that can go sideways. Alonzo Ball is doubtful. Patrick Williams is doubtful. Taylor Horton Tucker, who popped up, or he went off a little bit a couple games ago, he is probable. And then Dosunmu is out. So they are going to be shorthanded. I'm not that excited about their side of the game just because the Heat can be a good defensive team. But in terms of usage, we absolutely should still be interested in Josh Giddey, Kobe White, and Zach Collins. Even Trey Jones with no Ayo and probably no Lonzo. Trey Jones is probably going to start again and push for 30, 35 minutes. So the prices come up, but Trey Jones still looks like a solid value at 4.6. I do not mind it. Giddey is just the best tournament play you can hope for. He has a massive ceiling. He's got a huge role. He's going to play big minutes in a competitive game. Like, the matchup is not great, but he is unowned, and the projections just like kind of like it's like okay. So like, people are going to overlook him. I love Giddey for tournaments at 8.4K. Look at this game log. This guy is absolutely feasting. If the game stays close, he is going to go off. Kobe White, I feel like that's going to be a chasey game. He went nuts in his last game, 44 real points against the Cavs, made no sense whatsoever. And his price point is not super welcoming because he's kind of a scoring dependent player in general. So between the two, 100% I'm going Giddey. I think Kobe's still a fine play because he's got extra usage and stuff. And he's cheaper than Giddey, so there is that. But I think Giddey is the way better play today. Zach Collins remains a good play. Had massive foul trouble in the last game against the Magic. On the road against Orlando was never fun. Anyways, he fouled out in 12 minutes. I'm going to ignore that because I never was going to play him against the Magic anyways, and this is a better spot. Usually I do not like targeting Bam Adebayo with guys, but Zach Collins is cheap enough with a good enough usage rate, and he's displayed a really nice ceiling with this role without Vooch. So he is not a core play, but he is in play for me for sure. And then also Matas Buzelis. I came into this thinking I wasn't going to be that into Bulls, but I'm kind of talking myself into Bulls here. He looks good. He's been getting about 30 minutes every game, and he's only 5.2K. So I think the Bulls actually look pretty good. I talked myself into them. On the other side, Miami, they do look better because they have the way better matchup for sure. Tyler Hero should be in. Bam is there at 9.3. Bam's price with Hero in is too much. Like, I don't want to go get Bam at that price. Worth noting, he has been crushing anyways, 62 and 54 fantasy points in the last 2 games. One of those was with Hero in. So, I mean, you can play Bam still, but when you look at the price and the matchup, I think I'm going to go to Hero. Not that the matchup is bad for Bam. The Bulls are really bad against the big men. So you can absolutely play Bam, and he's getting less ownership than Hero. I just think Hero is the better point per dollar play here. Certainly compare both, and you can stack the whole game because that's pretty stackable. Andrew Wiggins remains questionable. He's been missing some time. If he's in, he's okay at 6.8. Obviously a great matchup for him. If he's out, Hero and Adebayo just get a major boost. We can look for value here if we want to. Alec Burks is questionable. That could help Davion Mitchell and Duncan Robinson. Just not super excited to go there. If I wanted to do that, I think I would lean Davion Mitchell just because he's been playing monster minutes, and Alec Burks possibly being out would just give him a boost there. Orlando and Milwaukee. This one's going to be interesting because it's kind of a positive matchup for the Magic. So Banchero and Wagner, who disappointed greatly against the Bulls in the last game, they are going to look pretty good here. And right now they're currently going overlooked when looking at projected ownership. So I don't mind going back to them. I do prefer Wagner here based on price, and the projection is pretty close. And then there's also Cole Anthony at 4.9K, going down up against Dame Lillard. So I think Cole is a pretty good value. I think that's where I'm starting here. If I'm going to target Magic, is going to be Cole. And then I'll probably look at Wagner and Banchero. Not super into Wendell Carter, but he's okay at 5.3. On the Milwaukee side, Giannis just got a midday. Well, it's not midday, it's early day. Questionable status with an illness. So obviously, if he's in, you can play him at 11.2K against the Magic. I'll say two things. One thing, the Magic, they aren't really the best matchup. If you look at rankings and stats, they don't look like a good team to target with offensive players, but they haven't really been that good lately. There have been a lot of guys going up against the Magic, whether it be Kobe White or whoever, just like there's guys being very productive against them lately. So I'm not as scared about the Magic as I had been. So if Giannis is in, you can do that. He's obviously one of the best guys in terms of ceiling on the slate, but he might not play, and obviously he's not 100%. So I'm not super excited about it personally. I think I will be fading. If he's out, Damian Lillard, even with the tough matchup, is going to look really, really good at 9.1. So if he's in as well, I love Dame on this slate. Kyle Kuzma will get a massive bump at 6.2. He will also look really, really good for a nice mid-range value. And then you can certainly look at Brook Lopez and try some punts like KPJ or Taurean Prince. I think I would mostly just be looking at Dame and Kuz, though. All right, Lakers and Boston, probably the most exciting game of the night. This game does have a nice total. Both teams are very, very dynamic offensively at this point, and they're also very capable of playing elite defense. So it's tough to really peg what this game is going to look like. If I had to guess, though, I think it's going to be pretty entertaining and a bit of a shootout. You can certainly pay for Luka at 11.5K. If Giannis is taken off the slate, he's going to be the best projecting option of the night, and he's not garnering ownership because the game's in Boston, and Boston, can play good defense, and it's like an 8-point spread. So if people are afraid to play Luka, I'm going to be all over playing Luka. Also, don't mind LeBron at almost $1,000 cheaper with a similar projection. The story is similar. So you can pick your poison. I think I prefer Luka just because he has the better ceiling, but LeBron has been very good even with Luka there, and there's nothing wrong with LeBron whatsoever. Austin Reeves continues to be a good value because his price keeps coming down. Just the floor is way, way lower with Luka in town now. I think he's an okay play just because obviously Boston should focus on Luka and or LeBron and try to shut them down as much as they can. And if they accomplish that, somebody would probably benefit, and Austin Reeves is the first guy to do that. So I think he's an okay turning play. But with all of them not really garnering ownership, I would rather just focus on Luka and LeBron. Jackson Hayes is questionable. If he's out, we can look at Vandy or maybe even Trey Jemison for value. I would just roll with whatever big starts in his place if he misses. At 4.7K, he's an okay value, just not really a very good matchup. On the Boston side, Lakers have been really good defensively, so it's not like this smash spot that it used to be. It really depends who's there. If everybody is out, if everybody's in, then the Celtics become less appealing. Like Porzingis and Drew Holiday are both questionable. I think Sam Hauser is also questionable. Yeah, he is. So Hauser would really not move the needle that much. Maybe that would impact, Peyton Pritchard to some degree, give him a little bit extra run. At 5.9K if all those guys are back, I don't want to pay for Pritchard at 5.9K. Don't really want to pay for Drew or Porzingis in their first game back, but they are good prices. Drew at 4.9K would be a decent value in theory. If Drew is out, Peyton Pritchard once again looks good at 5.9. Derek White is okay at 6.9. If Porzingis is also out, we can look at any of these guys and feel pretty good about them. Pritchard and White would look like really good values. Jaylen Brown at 8.3K would look really good. And of course, Tatum can go off in any setting. I just think if I'm going to pay 10.2 for Tatum, I need Porzingis to be out for sure. I think Jaylen Brown at 8.3, you can play him anyways, just because he's pretty cheap. Same with Derek White and Pritchard. But somebody needs to miss for me to get really excited about Boston players. All right, last game of the night is the Pistons against the Warriors in Golden State. Not really the most exciting spot in theory, but it actually does have a good total, 237 total. So, I mean, color me wrong. I've been corrected, I guess. Like, I don't know why it's that exciting of a spot in terms of, betting lines here, but it is. Cade Cunningham comes in with the third best projection as things stand and currently going a little bit overlooked at 10.1K. He is cheaper than LeBron. He's cheaper than Giannis. He's cheaper than Luka. So I think Cade's a very, very interesting stud to pay up for on this slate. And he looks better than Trey, albeit not really in a better spot technically, because the Warriors they can be pretty good defensively. But no Jaden Ivey, no Tobias Harris is back now. So actually that doesn't change things that much. It probably only helps him, to be honest. Cade's been a little bit shaky lately. I think he dealt with an illness or something a few games ago, but whatever the case, he comes in with a really good projection and not that much ownership. So I do have interest in Cade. Jalen Duren at 6.9. It's going to be interesting because obviously the Warriors can go small. And he can get into foul trouble. So those are two negatives for him. And as you can see, his minutes projection at 28, not really amazing, but he is a very good per-minute player, and he's been pretty darn good lately. And if he is out there, he should clean up against the Warriors due to a massive size advantage down low. One guy that I'm really interested in is Azar Thompson. 5.9K feels steep, but he's actually been approved to no longer have a minutes limit. He's been at 30 the last 2 games. He is a really good per minute guy, racks up steals and blocks, and he can do a little bit of everything. So at 5.9K in what looks like a good DFS environment here, I have a lot of interest in him. And then, we can look at Tobias Harris, Malik Beasley. They're okay. Not super excited about them. And last team of the night here, we have the Warriors. Steph Curry just keeps crushing. Certainly we can look at Steph Curry at 9.3K. He's been really, really good lately. 46 plus fantasy points in each of his last 4. Just look at these other games, just going nuclear. The Pistons are not really that good of a matchup, to be honest. But I said the same thing when he faced Orlando and the other day when he played the Nets, and he just keeps crushing. So I think the presence of Jimmy Butler has really opened things up for him quite a bit. And I'm not going to tell you not to play Steph Curry. Not carrying much ownership, has a solid projection, is kind of cheap in relation to the slate when you look at the other studs that we could be vying for. So if nobody's going to pay for Curry, he's interesting. Jimmy Butler is a good value at 7.8. Don't have a problem with him, just not a major priority. Doesn't necessarily stand out majorly. Dre is fine. Pajimski is questionable. At 5.8K, if Pod is in, he's a decent mid-range play. If he's out, I think Moses, Moody, and Buddy Hield look like decent values. All right, that does it for the overall breakdown here. Right now, I think my build is going to be looking at either Luka or Cade to start with. Cade is the most interesting stud on the slate right now if ownership sticks. And even if things change and if Giannis gets ruled out and then everybody looks at Dame, I think Cade's going to get overlooked big time. But obviously in that event, the Bucks, Dame, and Kuz are going to look really, really good as well. Obviously things are going to change quite a bit. It's only 10:26 Central. So just keep an eye on news and definitely get into our Discord and get access to our updated core plays if you want a little bit more help leading into lock. All right, that's going to do it for me. Thanks for watching and good luck.